I'm going to give you a quick rundown on everything you need to know about the Englund Gambit. It starts out with d4, e5, and then they capture the pawn, accepting the gambit. Now black brings the knight out, attacking the pawn, and white defends it. And then queen to e7. This looks like it's attacking the pawn, so usually they'll bring the bishop out to defend it. And now queen to b4, check, attacking the king, attacking the bishop, and attacking the pawn. And here's where white has to make some decisions. They'll usually notice that their bishop is hanging, so they'll usually drop it back to d2, and this is the best move. But you can see knight to c3 is pretty common, and that hangs a bishop, but now they have knight to d5, and this forks the queen and the c7 square, and the c7 square comes with a fork on the king and the rook. So even though you just got a bishop, you have to move the queen over, take the fork, lose the rook, but now the knight's trapped, and you got a bishop and you will get a knight, so that's 2 minor pieces for a rook, and it's a pretty even game with a slight advantage, less than +1 for white according to Stockfish. And this is playable, but a lot of times once you take this bishop, they'll think they just hung a bishop. They won't see this move. I've seen a lot of games where they just resign here. But the second most common move here from my games you can see is e3, and then you just come back here, pinning the knight to the queen, and you just have a good game from here as black. You're up a piece. But what if they don't bring the knight out? What if they just bring the bishop back here? This is also a good move, and they haven't messed up yet, but they're about to. Now queen to b2, capturing the pawn, and attacking the rook. And this is where white might fall into a trap. If they play bishop to c3, thinking that they're defending the rook and attacking your queen, and you can't capture the bishop because it's defended by the knight, but black has bishop to b4, pinning the bishop to the king. Now the bishop cannot capture your queen, and white has to be very careful here not to lose the game, because if they play queen to d2, thinking that they're breaking the pin and defending their bishop, you can just takes, and now queen to c1 is checkmate. There's no way to defend the king. King can't go anywhere. That's game over in 8 moves. So white can't bring the queen to d2. So what's the best move here? The best move is actually just to take the bishop, and then once you capture back, the rook is still hanging, so this knight has to come out somewhere, but where does it go? Can't go here because it's just going to take. Can't go here because of the same thing. And if you go here, and now the king's under attack, and the only way to stop the attack is to capture the knight with the queen, giving up the queen, and now it's just completely winning for black. So the critical move is to, instead of playing bishop to c3, white has to play knight to c3. And from here, you play bishop to b4, and then rook to b1, forcing the queen to go to a3. And from here, you just have to play chess. You can go back after your games and look to see what the best moves would have been. Just try to react to what they do. Knight to d5 is actually the best move here, but it's not the most common. Usually they play rook to b3, queen back, and there's just a lot of things that can happen from here. Usually white will have a slight advantage, but if they don't play perfectly, it's very easy for black to take the advantage back. For example, a couple weaknesses are this center pawn, which is currently attacked twice, and this pawn on the outside if this knight ever moves. And that could create a passed pawn that could turn into a queen later. So there's just a lot of opportunities for black here, even though the engine really says that white has an advantage. It is certainly playable. But if you're white, the one thing you just want to know is that after you take the pawn, it's good. It's okay to bring the knights out. But once they play queen to e7, just play knight to c3 right there. It's still a slight advantage for white, and it shuts down all of the traps that you can fall into. You won't see any Grandmasters recommending this opening because it's all tricks, but it's a lot of fun and very strong in the lower ratings if you're looking for something to play against d4. The Chess.com Explorer says I've been in this position almost 300 times, and I've won 62% of those games, so it's been working a lot for me. It's less effective the higher rating you get, but it's always fun to play. Let me know if you want to see me cover any other openings, and thanks for watching. Don't forget to follow me on Twitch so you don't miss my live streams.